Hey guys, welcome back to the Pulling Curls podcast. We are talking about a hot button topic, spanking. So let's be realistic about when it might happen, why it might happen, and what we can do to prevent it. Let's untangle it. Hi, I'm Hillary Erickson, the curly head behind the Pulling Curls podcast, Pregnancy and Parenting Untangled. There's no right answer for every family, but on this show, we hope to give you some ideas to make life simpler at your house. Life's tangled, just like my hair. Just a quick reminder to subscribe. Get on your favorite podcast player and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Today's guest, I think I met in 7th grade, actually. It's so fun to have people from Hillary's past life on. We did AP Calculus together, lots of English classes. She is the founder of Parenthood 365. Man, I feel like I parent even more than 365 days a year, but that's all it is. She is a parenting columnist for PBS Kids. She writes about education for NPR's Mindshift. She has 2 books. I love these titles. I Love You All the Time and You Have Feelings All the Time, which I think are awesome. She has taught almost every grade, K through 12. She's also been a school administrator. I want to introduce today's guest, Deborah Farmer Kris. Are you overwhelmed by all there is to do around your house? As a new mom, I felt overwhelmed at every turn. Fortunately, I turned to systems to make a change. Whether it's mornings, dinner time, or even just to climb out of a pile of kids' clothes, my course Family Routines can save you. I hold your hand as we smooth out these rough patches, making every day easier so we can more easily handle when your preschooler tells you they can use their urine like a lightsaber. Parenting is always going to be a wild ride. Routines are just your seatbelt, and they can support you. Use coupon code UNTANGLED to save 15% at checkout. Link in the show notes. Hey, Deborah, welcome to the Pulling Curls podcast.
Oh, Hillary, great to be here.
This is way better than AP Calculus.
Oh my goodness, exactly. Although I kind of expect you to be carrying around a trumpet or something.
It was just a flute and it would fit in my backpack.
Oh, that's right. It was the flute. That's right.
Yeah. And then in college, it was a piccolo, which was really easy to carry around. So I make good choices on instruments. My husband plays the trombone. He makes bad choices in instruments.
Oh, yeah. At least it wasn't like a bass or a cello or something.
That's true. Okay. So today we are not talking about AP Calculus. Thank goodness, because I have swept all that information out of my brain personally. Maybe you use it frequently.
No, I calculate tips. I think that's what I use math for.
So today we are talking about spanking, and my website ranks for how to spank.
How? Why?
Which veered really badly. So I had to take a lot of the words out of it to make it more like a parenting spanking than wink, wink spanking. So just because I wrote a post, because I think parents feel bad if they do spank. And I do think that the majority of parents who have a kid who's probably at least 4 has probably done a SWAT at some point in talking to people, because it's hard. And our parents probably did that, right?
Right. And we go to those instinctive places. I get it.
Yeah. What did my mom do? I'm constantly thinking like, well, how would my mom fix this? Because I turned out great.
Obviously.
Yeah. And I also feel like there are times that it might be important. Like when you see the kid just like running through the parking lot, I'm always like, that kid needs to learn that you can't do that. And I don't know the best way to teach it, but my kids usually would get a really hard hand squeeze initially. And if behavior that was really like going out to a pool, obviously is a big one here in Arizona, those types of things, sometimes I would do something that would remind them that could really hurt them. Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are the alternatives there? So first off, I don't believe in spanking when you're angry, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, actually, it doesn't really matter what it is. Like almost any discipline technique you're talking about doesn't work well when you're angry because it's activating your child too. So like if you're really angry, like that's almost the time to like step away if you can and put them in a safe place if you can. But the funny thing about this is I actually the Washington Post contacted me a couple weeks ago and said, we would love you to do a deep dive on like the science of discipline strategies. So all I've been reading the last 2 weeks is about discipline strategies. So I'm in the no spanking camp, but I'm not about shaming parents who do. I am so not about shaming parents because when we have kids and they're activated and they trigger us, honestly, we're doing the best I can. So I will offer this, that if you want the outcome to be that your child can be self-managing, which I think we want, to be healthy and make good choices and be kind. The research says that punishment, which spanking falls into that category, because punishment is basically doing something that the kid will not like in order to be a deterrent. It tends not to be as effective as consequences. And consequences are the natural kind, but obviously you don't want the child getting hit by the car. That's not a natural consequence we want for the child. But it's not so bad if their hands get really cold because they refuse to wear their mittens. And then there's, of course, the logical consequences, which are, parent engineered consequences, that you do this, I'm going to do something that is, related to that is going to show you that this is a consequence. And so consequences, because they're connected to the action, tend to be more effective. Also, because the issue with spanking is even if you are calm, it tends to activate the child. And so when the child goes into their fight or flight mode, their problem solving, your ability to talk to them about it, tends to really go out the window. And so the ability to spank and then have the conversation, that's really hard for the kid.
Yeah.
Because, when I talk to kids about the glitter jar that you shake up, when they're activated, there is no logical conversation you're having, even with your most logical 4 and 5-year-old who you think, oh, they're normally very calm. So, there's always there's the emotional component to any piece of discipline, which is, I was just talking to Mark Brackett, and he's the director of the Center for Emotional Intelligence at Yale. And his big comment is, behavior doesn't give you enough information, that your kid may be screaming and yelling at you, and what may be underneath that is fear or loneliness, or they got bullied at school or something else that happened, where the behavior, you can get curious about it, but it doesn't necessarily tell you what's happening to them psychologically. So his big platform, his soapbox, is that we have to become emotion scientists and get really curious about why a kid is doing this, versus an emotion judge, where you're kind of judging this. But I found that when I'm talking to parents, that one little piece of information, which is so usable, is that the one form of discipline that is related to the highest outcomes for things like developing empathy and kindness and responsibility is called induction. And it's inductive discipline is simply when you take it and you take that extra step to show them how their behavior affects another person or another creature or something else. So it goes from quit being so loud to, when you're loud, your dad can't concentrate on his work podcast and then he's going to be cranky later. Or quit, you let the candy wrappers out, to the dog, when he eats those, could get really sick. We often as parents imagine that our kids know more than they do. They're like, they should know better. And the truth is often they don't know better. Like, I can't believe they were so rude that they didn't say thank you to their grandma when she handed them this. And we've been isolating them from people for 2 years because of COVID. So there's so much teaching that needs to happen. So inductive discipline is really just, once they're in that calmer state, if they are activated, maybe they're not, is to connect, I did this because, when you did this, it made me feel this way. It made somebody else feel this way. When you put your Legos out and I step on them, it really hurt me. And the converse of that is true, to be able to show the positive of, when you did the dishes this morning and I didn't ask you, that really made the morning so much better. Because kids can feel out of control so easily. When you think about a 3-year-old, they're not choosing their clothes. They're not choosing, where they go to school. They're not choosing anything, but, they want to choose their Red Bull and you don't give it to them and they're going to explode, because what else can they control in their life? And so, when you have these moments where you're talking to them about how what they do influences somebody else, really this is the cause and the effect. There's real research that those are the kids who develop higher levels of empathy and higher levels of responsibility. So that's my little soapbox there. But then I'll also throw out that it's tough.
I think kids really want everyone to feel good around them. I don't think most kids, come out wanting other people to have hardships concentrating, like you were talking about, or step on a Lego and that hurts them. I don't think kids come to us wanting someone to suffer, maybe teenagers, but I really like that idea. So, but I will say, with tiny toddlers, a lot of times, I had one that just went for every light socket, right? And just he knew how to pull out the little thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, and he's going to be an engineer now, so that's fine. But what would you do in a situation like that? I mean, I think preloading,
Yeah,
right? Like if you're going to the parking lot, you're going to say, we don't run around in the parking lot. You could even like take your Hot Wheel and hit one of your action figures and be like, this action figure died, right?
exactly. No, I mean, exactly. I think that if you know that this is an issue with your kid, there's the role playing that happens before the situation, right?
Right.
Part of it is like, oh, I can actually control, like, putting the sockets in, or doing that experiment. Like, let's make it visual and big of, oh no. And even dramatically when the car's coming, they haven't run, being like, see how fast that car is. Like, if that car had hit somebody, like really showing that and explaining it over and over and over again. And there may be then, again, kind of those natural consequences, like they didn't hurt themselves, pulling that out, but say, because you pulled this out, this belongs to mommy, then we're going to take, what's the consequence of the thing that you took out something of mine. So we're going to take something of yours right now. And that doesn't feel good, does it? And so it's almost like I'm going to show that empathy. When you pulled this out, that's something that belongs to the house, and so there's going to be a consequence that connects to it. Because when it doesn't connect, when it's like, you didn't finish this, so you can't do this thing you like, the kid's like, well, what does dinner have to do with Paw Patrol or whatever? Like, it doesn't make logical sense in their mind. So they just think my mom's mean and not fair. Like, even as a little kid, it's like it doesn't become internalized. It becomes, I'm really mad at mean mom.
Yeah.
In that moment. And that's not what we're aiming for. We're aiming for that. But I think the other big thing for parents to remember, and it's so hard when they're young, is that when they do lose control, it has nothing to do with, it's nothing personal. It has nothing to do with you, and you can't control it. Meaning, like, you might be able to control some of the environment, like if they're triggered and when they're really hungry, blah, 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 but their bodies are going to lose control. And like, they learn self-regulation by watching you. And so, like, if you can take that deep breath with them, if you can do the time in with them, if they let you, right? Like, if they can let you do that time in where you're showing them the breathing, you can help them calm their body down. Kids don't learn to self-regulate on their own. Like, if you have an adult who's really upset, you're going to say, I'm going to let them be for a while. I'm going to walk away. But kids haven't learned how to do that yet. And so when they lose it, what they're really looking and needing is for us to be that calm, and so that they can borrow it, they can see what it looks like, and that's, some kids, they respond to that really well. Others, if they start to get more violent because they're high reactors and their bodies really lose control, there are other options. And if you want a really good book, the best, if you have a child like that, is a book called Why Is My Child in Charge by Claire Lerner, because she spends all of her days working with parents of highly reactive toddlers and preschoolers who go outside the norm, right? Who don't respond to the script. And she has really great methods for being a truly loving parent when you have that kind of kid. And those kind of kids are going to grow up to be awesome, empathetic, passionate people, but it can be really hard to raise them when they're 2 and 3.
Yes. It is really hard to raise every 2 and 3-year-old because
Oh,
they all you always feel like they're in charge at some point.
yeah. Is that a great title of a book? Why is my child in charge?
Yeah.
Why have I orchestrated my whole day around making sure they don't have the 4 o'clock meltdown, and then they have it anyway?
Yeah. I get that. Okay. So, because my kids are really, really old, I definitely did Timeout because that was the thing. A lot when they're little, I usually just had a playpen set up and I would put them in the
Yeah.
playpen and it had safe toys, because there's nothing you can do with a 2-year-old that's freaking out other than help them to calm down.
Yeah, exactly. If they respond to you on the rocking chair with them, great. If not, creating a safe space with the toy and the weighted blanket and the Nerf ball, that, like, the storm is going to pass. And, part of the question is like, what's the language you're using during that time? Like, is it you go to your room because you're being a terrible little blank, or is it your body's really out of control right now? So we're going to be here. And when your body calms down again, I'm going to help you because that's my job. So it's a lot of it. Like, I have no problem with timeout too as well. The question again is this being done in kind of shame and anger of like, you're being banished from the kingdom because of this? Or is it, right now, like, you're hurting your sister and I can't let you do that because your body's so out of control. And so we're going to first try to see if you can do some deep breathing in me. But if you can't, then, we're going to put you in that safe space for a little bit, maybe that playpen. and let you calm down, and then we can talk about what happened.
Right.
But you can't do the reasoning. I mean, when their brain is glittering, that's not the time to talk about, kind of choices and consequences.
Well, and I usually said mommy needs some time to calm down, especially if it
Sure.
was like a big thing, because I
Oh my
probably
gosh.
wasn't ready to hold them and deep breathe in certain situations.
That's huge. Actually, and that's the thing when I see all the gentle parenting stuff on Instagram, which is like, great, it's the ideal, but it's also kind of expecting me to be superhuman and never have reaction to my kids' reactions. And that's not going to happen. And so like if being with your child at that moment means you're going to lose it with them, then go check out and sit in the car and have somebody else, or put them in that safe crib if they're young enough, and go take the breather. Because, I think we have parents who feel like I can never take a break because it means I'm a bad parent. That's ridiculous. Like, we all need breaks sometimes. You got to circle back to your child. You got to make sure that like you're not leaving them in the pool by themselves, but they're going to be fine for a few minutes while you go and take your breather and get yourself collected. And that's actually an awesome thing to model for your kids. I mean, I say it sometimes. I'll be like, you know what? I'm really cranky right now. I'm not going to respond well to you in what you just said. So I'm going to take a walk with the dog around the block and we'll come back and talk about it. They're older. I can do that now. I couldn't always take a walk around the block by myself. That's a total privilege, I realize right now. But that's fine for my 8-year-old to hear me say that.
Yeah.
And to say, we'll come back and talk. But right now I'm feeling upset and I want to have a calm conversation with you. So I'm going to go check out for a little bit. And that's one that he realizes that his words affected me, but he also sees that I'm coping. I'm not blowing up at him. Hopefully I'm doing something to cope, and then we're going to come and circle back.
Yeah. I mean, but you're definitely going to have those blow up times.
Oh my gosh, of course. And here's the thing, if you can forgive yourself, then you forgive your kids too, right? Like
Right.
They're going to have blow up times, you're going to have blow up times. And sometimes you're going to say you're sorry as a parent, which is a great 3 words to keep
Yes.
in your parenting arsenal.
Yeah. I always talk about in the hospital when something goes like really wrong, we have what's called a morbidity and mortality meeting where you review everything. Like everyone has the same weighted opinion. So a doctor's opinion doesn't come before a nurse or a tech or the pharmacist. Like everyone is on the same level and we all get to give our input and as to why we think this happened. Right. And sometimes it just happens because of Mother Nature. Like people just die. But what could we have done to prevent it or act swifter or all those different kinds of things? And I'm such a big fan of like coming back with your M&M where we're all on the same plane. I have my kid's opinion is valued just as much as mine. And we decide how this could have been handled better. And obviously it's really fast when they're a toddler, right? You ran into the parking lot when we were at Target and I love you so much. I don't want you to die. Mm-hmm. How are we not going to have that happen again?
What are we going to do next time? Exactly. Like this is what happened. Because you have to have these conversations. You have to draw these boundary lines with kids because it's our job to keep them safe. And I say that to them all the time, even when they're really little, like mommy's job is to keep you safe. So what are we going to do next time this happens? Because, and I feel like sometimes kids have like really, even young ones, really amazing ideas when you bring them a challenge. Like, wow, this morning we were all really cranky and you couldn't find your shoes and mommy got really mad and because she was late for work and I'm sorry I got so mad. What do you think we can do tomorrow morning? And then, like I remember I did that once and my son was 3. So he's like, my shoes are next to the door, and he ran and he got them. So, he was being responsible. But then my daughter, who was 6, said, could you put an alarm clock in my room? Because I realized she didn't have a clock. So I was like, you're not getting up. But she was completely dependent on me. And she didn't need to be at age 6, completely dependent on me. And the minute she said, you could get me an alarm clock, I was like, oh, because I had been
sell
making
those
every morning around like mom has to get everything right. And if you don't do it, it's like I was the hub of the wheel. And and this is hard. Like as your kids get older, that shift can happen pretty fast and we're not ready for it. Right. We're like, I'm doing everything for them to, oh my gosh, not only can they do it on their own, they should be doing it on their own. And so like, that's really great to have that family meeting to say, mornings aren't working. Like, what are 2 small shifts that we can make? Let's get your ideas.
Yeah, I love that. So I think what we've learned in this is mom's going to sometimes get out of control. Hopefully you don't spank. Hopefully you're not in that habit. And if you are in that habit, it's always okay to change, right?
Yep, absolutely. and try something new and to ask for help.
Yeah. And preload.
Get ideas for your friends, right? Like this is it is a village. Like talk to somebody, vent and say, I don't know what to do about my 3-year-old is doing blank. Get ideas from somebody.
Yeah. And to hear if it's normal. And if your friends are like, my kid does not do that. Like several kids, you know, there's always that mom in the playgroup that's like, oh, my kid never does that. And you're like,
And
well,
get
I
find
hate
a new
you.
friend.
Isn't that fun? You know, but if you're finding that really like everyone else kind of doesn't struggle with this, then talk with your pediatrician, obviously, because there is a whole spectrum of kids' behavior and stuff like that. And there's so many resources out there for parents that I think people just aren't aware of. Yeah. Find good people on TikTok and podcasts and good friends, because I think it helps when you're at that play date at the park and all the moms are like, yep, I shoved my kid right into that car seat. Well, he kicked the bejesus out of me the other day.
Yep, exactly right. And yet he was safe and he was buckled in, right?
Yeah.
Like, I won that one.
Ugh, that was like the worst as a parent, especially when you were already at the store. And so people were like watching you as your kid just screamed.
Oh, I know. There's so much judgment toward parents. And like, that's so much of my work, like with, you know, as a parent educator and a parenting columnist is like, there's great research out there. I try to translate it into these bite-sized pieces because I think there is a lot of stuff to learn, but also like, you know, no shame. Like it really like, if you're struggling, we've all struggled. There are resources out there, but it's like self-compassion. Like really give yourself a lot of compassion because this is the hardest job on earth.
And it's 24 hours a day, every day, forever.
Yeah.
Let me be the bearer of bad news forever. Mine's 21.
Well, I remember before I had kids, I was a teacher and I had a principal who said, you know, before parent conferences, just remember that when a parent has a kid, their heart is walking around outside their body for the rest of their lives, you know, and so when you're having these parent conferences, just remember these are vulnerable people in front of you because you are taking care of their heart.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's real. I get it so much more now.
Yeah. It's so hard. So big fist bump to all the parents out there. I think discipline is so hard in teenagers, in toddlers, in school age, and it's always changing.
Yeah.
Because just like you were saying, like these kids advance and we're not prepared for it. We don't have ideas. We've always done X, Y, Z, and then that changes. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But having good conversations with kids and paying attention to their emotions, that doesn't change. Like that's a great guidepost all the time. It's
an emotional investigator.
Exactly. Be an emotion scientist.
Oh, I'm not very good at that. These kids need to move out. I'm just kidding. All right, Deborah, where's the best place for people to find you?
So if you go to parenthood365.com, you'll find all of my social channels and my books and links to my articles.
Yeah. And tons of good advice that really tempers how hard it is with also like you can do this. You can be better.
And it is Parenthood 365 because it is 365 days a year. So
I actually think it's like 370 days a year. I feel like that I threw in some extra days, especially when they were little.
Well, there's a leap year, right? Like 366 sometimes.
Well, you get a sleep regression and it could be 400 days a year. I feel like.
Seriously. Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope none of you felt shame from it because that was definitely not our reasoning behind this episode. But sometimes you just feel like you need a helping hand, right? Like, what else can I do? And hopefully this episode gave you some ideas for that. Don't miss next week's episode. We are talking about my study on birth fears and what it showed, what people are afraid of. And the week after that, we're going to be talking about zoning your kitchen. Like, what kind of zones can you have in your kitchen and how can it help you like make dinner easier? Because I personally, there was rarely a time that I got more frustrated with children when I was making dinner. So yeah, these go hand in hand. Stay tuned. Thanks so much for joining us on today's episode. The Pulling Curls podcast grows when you share us on social media or leave a review. If you do, please tag us so that we can share and send you a virtual hug, which frankly is my favorite kind of hugging. Until next time, we hope you have a tangle-free day.